What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. I am Justin Van Zuiden, joined by Derek Farnsworth, aka Notorious, as usual, here on a Monday evening. A week that would typically be, a little bit of a major tournament hangover. Not really the case this week, as we have another strong event, one of the new quote-unquote designated events this week with the RBC Heritage, which has always been one of my favorite tournaments to follow. Like the course a lot. So should still be able to have some fun this week, even though the Masters is over. And Noto, we talked about this last week on the show, that one of the big storylines would be how the live guys perform at the Masters. And I think I made a compelling case off the top for nobody's playing DJ or betting Brooks Koepka at 35-1 or Cam Smith. And it was kind of a mixed bag for the live guys, but Koepka came up just short. And I don't think anybody, though, expected Phil to be in the mix. So kind of a weird Masters week with the weather and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely weird Masters, but I could see the Brooks thing coming. I mean, it wasn't likely, and I wasn't expecting. I could see Reed finishing in the top 10, but man, I could make 1,000 DFS lineups, never include Phil in one of them. I mean, he was struggling to finish top 40 in the live events with 48 golfers. So consider me fooled on that one. I hear he didn't say one word at the Champions dinner. He didn't talk to one single person the whole night. Just the whole story is just so strange. But it was awesome seeing him play well again. It was kind of fun seeing Brooks back in the mix. I'm never a Patrick Reed fan, but it was good. They provide a lot of drama, if nothing else. And I hear you got your first snake draft cash, thanks to one of them.
Yeah, so the 6-man, which became our official snake draft last week, my first 3 picks were Justin Thomas, who missed the cut, and Will Zalatoris, who missed the tournament, and Corey Connors, who missed the cut. So we finished dead last, like 40 points below everybody else in the 6-man snake draft. But the 12-man that we ended up ignoring, I ended up with Phil in that one. So I ended up placing second. So I got my first cash, and it was via auto draft. So maybe I just need to not actually participate in these things and just let the auto draft take care of it, because I'm terrible otherwise. But, it was a weird week. And I played probably my first higher stakes DFS contest in about 6 months this week, because, I don't go as heavy during tax time and all that, but it's the Masters, wanted something to sweat. So I did a lineup in the 888 or whatever on DraftKings, just one lineup. And it started off Hovland and Xander were my only 2 golfers that teed off early in the morning, and Hovland shot 7 under the first round or something. I was getting real pumped about this one high stakes lineup. And then I had Zalatoris in it. So it instantly, after my first guy, the high of a -7 first round, it instantly just becomes dead in a matter of about 5 minutes, with Zalatoris pulling out. And now news coming out today that he's going to miss the rest of the season. So tough break for Willie Z. And I don't know, in retrospect, I guess we could have seen that coming with the way he'd been playing and everybody talking about his putting stroke. But Zalatoris is going to be done for the year for some surgery.
Yeah, pretty sad. One of my favorite golfers on tour. And he had the quote Masters week saying he finally feels 100%. And then must have hurt his back in warm-ups on Thursday or late Wednesday night. But I always kind of wish those things come out before lock. And so I think it's the 3rd Masters year in a row that we've had it. Paul Casey did last year, and then I can't remember who it was the year before. But sucks for Willie Z. Hopefully he can get back. I've seen a couple of people compare the situation to Graham DeLette, how he was kind of on top of the DFS golf world for a while, and then he never recovered from his back surgery. So hopefully we don't have one of those on our hands. But and then we had Tiger. I couldn't believe he went out.
Boy, he was almost needed to be wheeled off the course.
Yeah, we all forget that he just had his back fused a couple years ago, and then he's dealing with plantar fasciitis as well. But he went out there and made the cut, extended his Masters cut streak to 23, so he has a chance to set the all-time record next year, which should be pretty cool. But anytime you get him in cold weather, probably probably safe to stay away from in DFS.
Yeah, and it went from 90 degrees there the first day to in the 40s there with rain after a couple days, and that definitely wasn't good for old Tiger. But nice to see him at least make the cut and give it the old college try there. But you could tell he was going to have trouble making it through the weekend. Otherwise, Jon Rahm, of course, put his stamp on the tournament with a victory, comfortable victory, 4-shot win by kind of playing steady golf there, which was even more impressive when you consider that he 4-putted the first hole of the tournament and still was able to win comfortably. So just continuing his spectacular season, and he'll be teeing it up again this week. Also, it wasn't necessarily a week with a ton of carnage outside of Zalatoris withdrawing and Connors and Justin Thomas missing the cut. Most of the other higher owned plays, I guess Minwoo Lee and Rory, obviously too, would be a couple of the other guys that disappointed and didn't make the weekend. But with the smaller field at the Masters and a lot of guys that are just out of it, you're not really going to contend unless you get a 6-6 lineup with quite a few top 10s. So especially when you had Rahm and Koepka and Hovland, Jason Day was in the mix for a while before fading a bit on the weekend. So what happened to your boy there over the weekend? It was looking rosy there for a few rounds.
He had a 5-footer to get to 10 under par in his second round, missed the 5-footer, and then had to lay up on the par 5, hit his third in the water, and it just came apart from there. And then Sunday, it was just double after double after double. So that was hard to watch, broke my heart, like he always does. But maybe that's why I love him so much, because, he gives me hope and then takes it away. It's the girl that plays hard to get. But, yeah, so that was hard to watch. I made 5 lineups last week. One had Rahm and Brooks, and then it had Minwoo and JT. So it had some promise, but didn't quite get there. But yeah, Phil and Spieth, that was kind of the story on Sunday other than Rahm. Their pairing just absolutely crazy. 13 under par. I think they had 16 or 17 birdies between the two of them. That was fun to watch. And then kind of just felt like Brooks ran out of steam. I know a lot of people are making the Liv only played 3 rounds jokes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, even though it's an easy joke to make, it is funny. But then that didn't really apply to Phil and Reed. But yeah, Brooks, I think he went 20 straight holes without a birdie, and you just can't do that at Augusta. He was driving, he had the case of the lefts off the tee on Sunday and got himself into some trouble. And once Rahm got the lead, you just felt like it was over.
Yeah.
He deserved it. He played the best. You mentioned he 4-putted this first hole, thanks to Zach Ertz. And then did you hear that story? And then he also was on the worst side of the draw too. So for him to win by 4 with those two things happening is really impressive. He was emotional after. I always like watching those interviews. But yeah, I'm sad we have to wait another 360 days for another one.
Jacket looked a couple sizes too small for him. I'm not sure what happened there, but I'll have to tailor it up a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, they can't even blame it on making it for Brooks, because he's just as big.
I know it. But yeah, so any other takeaways from the tournament itself? I think we've covered most of the things I had on my radar there. Pretty good week for Cam Young as well. Theegala with a pretty good final push, just like Spieth and Phil. So it was and Freddie Couples, the oldest person to make the cut at the Masters. So that's pretty cool to see too.
Yeah, those were all fun stories, and obviously had the trees falling. Can't believe nobody got hurt, thankfully. Yeah, and I think that's just about it. Good first major. Can't wait for the other 3. Now we get the RBC. So this is going to be a good week. Like you mentioned, the field's a lot better than it usually is. So we don't have those Monday Masters, hangovers and depressions like usual.
Yeah, so this is a designated event, extra money at stake this week. And so you have a lot more people than normal playing the week after a major. I believe most of the top players, except for Zalatoris, of course, who's injured, and Day and McIlroy, who've elected to pass. Pretty much all the other top PGA Tour guys are in the field this week. And so you're going to see quite a few of them that maybe don't have a lot of history at Harbortown, which is interesting because it's not necessarily as predictive in terms of course history, but it is kind of a unique layout, a unique course that, I do think there is some value for the guys that tend to play here every year. So we've got a mix of those usuals and the guys who are probably only teeing it up because there's a little bit extra at stake. But in any case, it'll be a change from what we usually see for this tournament and for the week after a major. So why don't you give the usual intro on the course, Harbortown, this week?
Yeah, it's par 71 has been lengthened a little bit. It can now play over 7,200 yards, but still pretty short by PGA Tour standards. It's in Hilton Head, and our boy Dan Kramer says he lives in Hilton Head, so he'll be boots on the ground. So they'll have to give us some inside takes if he hears any this week. If you hear of any withdrawals, let us know before lock. Those are tough to recover from. But anyway. Yeah, so these have some of the smallest greens on the PGA Tour, 3,700 square feet. The only smaller ones are going to be Pebble Beach. The fairways aren't as narrow as you might expect on one of these like strategic courses. So they're going to be pretty easy to hit, but you're going to see a lot of guys, lay off the driver this week. Doesn't really favor any specific skill set other than you got to be good around the greens, because if you miss the greens and, with them being so small, everyone's going to be missing a lot of greens. You got to be able to scramble. You got to be able to putt on Bermuda. And I was just looking at the guys with the best course history. It's Matt Kuchar, Webb Simpson, and Patrick Cantlay. So, three guys with, really good short games. So that kind of fits the bill of what I'm looking for. But you could definitely ball strike your way around here, especially if the wind's not going to be up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what the scoring looks like with the fact that we have a stronger field than usual. If the course will simply play a little bit easier because the quality of golfer is higher than what we usually see. So that'll be to be determined, obviously, and and what the weather does as well. But a course where patience is certainly going to pay off, and you're not just going to be able to bomb and gouge your way to 24 under par like we see on some of these easier PGA Tour stops these days. So should be a fun one. And let's go ahead and dig into the golfers. So pricing this week, obviously it's not as loose as it was for the major. We do have 5 golfers above 10K. That would be Rahm, Scheffler, Spieth, Cantlay, Morikawa. And I think this is interesting because, Rahm coming off a major win. Scheffler, I believe, has never played here. Spieth, Cantlay, and Morikawa have been regulars or semi-regulars at this tournament, and Spieth and Cantlay finished 1-2 here last year. So, and Cam Young finished 3rd. So a lot of these top-end golfers rose to the top last year. Are you buying that either A, Masters hangover from Rahm, or B, that Rahm and or Scheffler could be at a disadvantage without all the history of some of these other guys?
I don't think the course history matters as much, but look, Rahm could show up without any practice and play well, but I have a feeling that he's not, out there grinding on the range today. I think he's going to take some time to celebrate, his first green jacket, his second major win. So that does worry me. It's just, grinding it out, especially how much golf they had to play in contention on Sunday, it just makes me think he's probably going to have a little bit of a down week. So he's probably my least favorite of the 5. And then I saw a quote from Jordan Spieth saying he needs to revamp his schedule for next year because he's incredibly tired right now after playing 8 of the last 10 weeks. And he's a defending champion, which comes with extra media obligations. So, that kind of worries me a little bit. Then you mentioned, I think those two would be my least favorite. No issue with Scheffler. I think he was second tee to green last week at the Masters, just couldn't putt. And then my favorites are going to be Cantlay and Morikawa. Cantlay just loves all P-Dye courses. 3 top 10s here. Morikawa, number 1 in ball striking the last 2 years here. So if he putts, I think he can win. And Cantlay just feels like he needs to just putt too. He's been really good ball striking the last 3 months or so. So those are going to be my favorites. What about you?
Yeah, we're pretty much in alignment there. Obviously, I always tend to be underweight on Spieth, and that quote is concerning. Was tilted at his hot Sunday round there to climb up the leaderboard yesterday. But, probably underweight on Spieth and Rahm, obviously, for the same reasons you mentioned. Probably go Cantlay, Scheffler, Morikawa for my rankings for the other three. I do think that Morikawa is really interesting. Some good late signs from him at the Masters as well. And he doesn't have, I guess, the chipping issues that we often see with Hovland. Hovland, who was clearly annoyed with Patrick Cantlay over the weekend with the pace of play.
Who wasn't?
It was very.
Apparently, Rahm had to pee on one of the holes, and Cantlay was lining up his putt. Rahm went pee, came back, and he still hadn't hit the putt yet. So, I mean,
and Brooks had a quote afterwards that Rahm went to the bathroom like 7 times during the round, and they were still waiting every time. So, the subtle, not so subtle jabs, I guess, that Cantlay continue. But so hopefully Hovland doesn't get paired with Cantlay. But this is a course where around the green game really matters. Hovland's only played here once. I don't necessarily care if you're a poor putter per se, but the chipping with Hovland, I think, worries me at this place.
Yeah, it worries me too. And look, he had his quotes about how much he's been practicing around the green, how he feels more comfortable. In the first couple of days, he looked pretty good at the Masters, but man, he got lucky on quite a few of them. I watched the whole first 2 rounds because he was paired with Tiger, and I watch every Tiger shot that I can these days. And man, he got some lucky breaks with those chips around the green. So I'm not buying into the narrative that all of a sudden he's good chipper of the ball. So I'm probably with you on Hovland. Cam Young's kind of interesting because this doesn't feel like a good course for him. The driver's his biggest weapon, but he was third here last year. And I looked at his stats. He gained 4.6 strokes off the tee. So I don't know if he just is hitting driver anyway and just cutting corners and being more aggressive than everyone else. That could be a boom or bust strategy here. So maybe I'll have some of him in tournaments. But it does feel a little bit easier just to go, down to Finau, Schauffele, and Homa. All three of them, don't really have a big weakness. They're all pretty good with their irons around the green. And I think those are going to be my favorites in that 9K range.
I'd be interested to see where ownership goes on some of those guys that you just mentioned, because, Finau had an okay week, finished 26th, but, not obviously in contention and at the top where everybody was talking about him over the weekend. Let's see, where did Xander finish up? I get the leaderboard up here, and Xander did kind of backdoor into top, tied for 10th. So, but these guys weren't really in the mix per se as we headed into Sunday. Homa finished 43rd. So, if people are just going off of recency bias and what they saw last week with the Masters, Finau, Schauffele, Homa, Thomas, who missed the cut at 8,900, maybe. Those guys end up going a little bit under owned. But if you look at our early projections, it kind of indicates that something like getting 2 of those guys, like a Finau Xander type of build, seems like it might be somewhat optimal in terms of our early projections right now.
Yeah. And, it's a strong field. So you can build a really good lineup if you do start in the 9Ks. And with question marks around, the 3 best players in the field, I certainly don't mind that strategy.
I'm peeking at the course history for some of these guys. Xander, really not much to outside of Young's T3 last year. Justin Thomas does have a T8 3 years ago, but nobody that really stood out as a must-have last week at the Masters, and nobody with great course history. So I think interesting tournament options pending where the ownership ends up settling on these guys. What do you make of Thomas specifically there? Bogey in the last couple holes to miss the cut. Just hasn't been himself here for most of the year.
Yeah, it's mostly been the putter until last week. And I mean, he got the worst of the draw for sure. I think he was the second to last group that went out when he finished his second round. And I mean, guys were hitting at 240 off the tee. It was something in that rain and that wind. But you still can't really give him a free pass for a 42 on the back 9 at the Masters. He did make a lot of bad swings. And, I mean, hey, he helped Tiger get through the cut, so I thank him for that. But just one of those weeks I kind of throw out. 8,900 is a good price point. I think if he would have made the cut, played a little better, he would be right there with Young and Finau in terms of pricing. And you talk about the skill set needed here. You want to be good on approach, and if you do miss, you want to be good around the green. So, I don't mind going back to Thomas. He'll probably be pretty popular though.
Yeah, I would think he'll be somewhat chalky, but again, interesting to see where people go in this range. And then heading down the list of upper 8K options, you've got Sam Burns, you've got Sung Jae Im in here. Burns had a couple of hot rounds. It tends to be, what he does. A lot of tournaments gives you one hot round. Started with a 68. Third round though put up a 78, so ended up finishing T29 with quite a variance in his rounds. But Burns in there, you got Sung Jae Im in there, who finished tied 16th last week. Tom Kim, and another impressive, just keeps on rolling in terms of courses that he maybe hasn't played a whole lot. Top 20 for him as well at the Masters. And then you got a lot of guys that maybe you think good course fit. Fitzpatrick has always talked about how much he likes this course. Lowry has some results here. You've got Hatton, Fleetwood, also in the 8K range. So still much stronger than what we see a lot of normal PGA Tour weeks. Looks like Sung Jae is projecting the best of the group right now. Our models tend to like him most weeks. What are your thoughts? You got a favorite out of this 8K group?
Yeah, very strong range. I was listening to the broadcast. They were talking about Sam Bennett and how good he's played for a 19-year-old, as an amateur in the Masters. And then they cut to Tom Kim, and they were saying Tom Kim's only 20 years old. So he's younger than 8 of the top 10 amateurs in the world. Just to put into perspective how young he is still, even though he's been on the tour for a year now. So I thought that was kind of interesting, just how good he's been. But I like Tom Kim. This feels like the perfect course for him. He's going to hit the fairways. Great iron player, underrated around the greens. So I'll be overweight on him. You mentioned Burns being, very up and down, but he was 10th in DraftKings scoring last week just because he makes so many birdies and eagles, and I think that's good for that price point. Sung Jae is very safe. I think a lot of people are going to click his name this week. And then I like Terrell Hatton. I watched him and Homa on Sunday a bit, and they were feeding off each other, man. Both of them went with the fake break the driver over the knee a couple times. They were tilting together quite hard. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, Hatton, he's got a third here, a couple good finishes. And then I'll always play some Tommy. I'll always play some Lowry. I think it's a really strong range. And we didn't talk about Fitzpatrick, who, when he first came on tour, he said this was his favorite course and that he was going to win here one day. So, coming off of a top 10, his best finish in a while. So I think it's a really strong range.
You mentioned the brick. Did you see that Thomas Peters literally threw his driver into a trash can?
I did not. Oh, I got to see that one.
So Thomas Peters literally put his driver in the trash and drove with a 3-wood for his final 9 holes and hit every fairway and didn't make a bogey. So perhaps he should just take the driver out of the bag. But I did not see the video. I don't know if there is video. I just was reading that secondhand on some article somewhere. But people are going to get mad, I guess, at Augusta. It's going to test your patience. I lost my train of thought because when you talked about them doing the fake bust up the driver over your kneecap, I thought of that. Yeah, I think Fitzpatrick, certainly a guy I don't mind playing here. Lowry, 3rd, 9th, and 3rd, 3 of his last 4 trips. Hatton with the good finishes as well. So you touched on it. I think I will probably group these guys together and, make sure I'm playing at least one of them in most lineups. And you can build a relatively safe lineup too. This field is a little bit larger than originally projected. So because they're allowing everybody who met the criteria to play to tee it up. So even though the scheduled field size of this is at 132, I think originally there were like 145, and with Rory pulling out and Jason Day pulling out and Zalatoris, of course, we're down to like 143 now. And they're not going to replace anybody that withdraws unless we happen to get below 132. But the field size is a little bit bigger this week than originally projected. Might make it at least somewhat harder to get those 6 of 6 lineups this week.
That's a good note, because I was wondering, I was checking the site yesterday, and they said 147 in the golfers in the field, and I'd never seen that before. It's always usually a multiple or an add of 12, so it's either 132 or 144 or 156. But with these elevated events, I guess everyone that meets the criteria, they're going to try to let them play. So
They didn't want to limit it to 132 and keep people out. So that was the rationale for that. I think we're at 143 or 144 now with the withdrawals from today. All right, let's move into the upper end of the 7Ks. Will be interesting to see. Connors is always chalky, was really chalky last week. We talked about him being severely underpriced coming off a win. And then, of course, he has a blow-up round on Friday/Saturday, ends up missing the cut by several strokes. Will be interesting to see what people do with Connors because he's coming to another course that should suit his game and where he has 3 top 25s the last 3 years. You mentioned Kuchar's course history at the top of the show, but the field does kind of start to fall off in the upper part of this 7K range. Once you get through, say, Keegan, Connors, Kuchar, you got Fowler, who's having a rebound year, but hasn't had a ton of success here. Siwoo Kim, Wyndham Clark, Taylor Montgomery, guys that have been kind of hit or miss and don't have a lot of course history. But where are you looking at in the upper sevens?
Yeah, I don't mind going with some of the guys in this range that didn't play last week. They had the week off, extra time to practice. And so that includes Matt Kuchar, who has been awesome here, 11 straight made cuts with the win in a second. Ricky Fowler, who you mentioned, his approach game's just been awesome. He's gained at least 4 strokes in 4 of his last 6. And then Wyndham Clark, who used to be a bomber putter, and now all of a sudden he's doing a little bit of everything well, especially with the iron. So I think all 3 of those names are interesting. I'll always play some Siwoo on Pete Dye courses. It kind of feels like a Justin Rose type of track because he's really good with the short game. Going to be fading Henley. I think everybody's going to be on Henley. He was kind of in the mix there on Sunday, and it was almost all short game. Let me pull up the stats right here. So yeah, for the week, he gained 0.14 on approach and off the tee, and then he gained like 8 strokes putting and around the green. So I think I'm okay fading him, especially if he's going to be popular. But Corey Connors does feel like a good bounce back candidate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if people just say, "Hey, we're going to go there," or we're gonna run for the hills after that performance. But I don't think you need to let 1 week scare you away, especially if that lowers the ownership. I think you got to be interested there. At 7,800, I don't have a whole lot of interest in a lot of these other guys, kind of in the middle part of the range. Keith Mitchell made the cut, but I think finished dead last week. Impressive performance from Gary Woodland, turning back the clock a little bit with a solid week, but just haven't seen a whole lot of consistency out of these guys. Hoagie's been up and down. Minwoo Lee looked pretty overwhelmed last week. We haven't seen much of Webb Simpson lately. Adam Scott, I guess, could be somewhat interesting. He had a kind of a solid all-around week, nothing special, but didn't play all that poorly. But I don't know, just kind of a tough range to peg here in the middle part and starting to go to the bottom part of the 7K range. Looks like Ryan Fox is projecting fairly well again, but you got any hot takes in here?
I don't really like Adam Scott. The last time he finished in the top 20 was August, and his stats are pretty ugly. So I don't love him. Webb's interesting, at least a little bit. The irons are back. Talk about course history, very similar to Matt Kuchar. He's made 11 straight cuts here with the win in a second. Obviously, he's not the same golfer now that he was then, but maybe he, is getting on the Ricky Fowler, Jason Day resurgent train. And then I like JT Poston, 7,300. He's a guy with some good course history, really good short game. He's got 3 top 10s here the last 4 years. I like Denny McCarthy. He's improving a little bit off the tee. Used to be just straight putter. And the last time we saw him, he gained over 4 with the irons. So if he can do that, he's going to have a really nice season ahead of him. And don't really love anyone until we get down to Cam Davis. The last time we saw him was at Valero. I think he was 8 over round 1. He was 7 over at one point round 2 and almost made the cut, which would have been crazy. Would have been the Brendan Still of the Honda Classic from like 12 years ago, if anybody remembers that. But Cam Davis, he's not sick anymore. He talked about it at the start of the year. He was really sick, hurt his practice time and all that. So I think he's interesting. 3rd place here last year.
I'm not going to believe anything I hear in the news after what happened with Zalatoris. So, going from almost dead last to making the cut, that is like the, the anti-Keegan, the reverse Keegan. from what Davis did there a few weeks back. But yeah, I can get behind that. I mean, if you look at some of the guys in this, I can't get behind Webb. I know the course history is there. I think if I'm going with a course history guy in this range, I'd go with Poston before I went with Webb. Probably still off of Harmon, Horschel. Just tough to get on board with those guys these days. But like the McCarthy call as well. And then Davis, who you mentioned. That's probably about it for me in this range. You know, Svensson hasn't been doing a whole lot lately. Actually did play Mackenzie Hughes at 7K. I played him in a couple of lineups last week where I needed somebody basically min salary, and that ended up working out for min salary, T29, and a good finish for Mackenzie Hughes at the Masters. But
speaking of, who did you just say before Hughes? Now I lost my train of thought. Svensson.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear Svensson's interview at the Masters?
No.
So they were asking him questions, and he didn't know the name of his caddy. And then they were asking about his practice round, and they asked him about the 13th hole, the changes, and he didn't know what hole it was at the Masters. And then they were asking about the club he plays out of, and like all the top pros play out of the same club, and he couldn't name one golfer that was in the club. Like, I don't know if he was, just joking, but everyone's like, what in the world's happening with Adam Svensson?
Had a few beverages before his interview.
Yeah, it might have been some mushrooms or something better. I don't know. But getting a lot of questions about the snake draft in the chat. So it's going to be the $5, going to be the 12-man. But don't fill it until we get there, all right?
So one of these weeks we'll have to ignore it and do a different one because there's too many people in there before we get in. This has become a thing. And we're almost there. We're almost there as we get into the punt range. Is where the field strength really dips. A lot of red in our projections in the 6Ks. And, you know, I don't necessarily think you need to go down here. Feels like a course where Noto might like Brendan Todd a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah, Brendan Todd's going to make the cut, finish T49. So if you want that in your lineups, you can certainly take him. This feels like an Andrew Putnam course, but he's 0 for 4 here. I don't really get why. The last time we saw him, he was really good with the ball striking. So I think that course history is going to keep the ownership down. I think he's the most talented golfer in the 6Ks. And then Ben Griffin at 69 just has been so good. I think he's missed 2 cuts, and both of them were right near the number recently. Other than that, like you mentioned, I don't think we need to go down that low because for $1,000 more, you can get Matt Kuchar, Corey Connors, Chris Kirk, Justin Rose, those types. So, yeah, for me, I'm not taking a lot of 6K guys.
Yeah, same here. Don't mind those plays, but not looking to dig too deep into that range. Maybe we'll uncover another gem or two at the lower end of the snake draft, but there's nobody that's projecting all that well in terms of not even a whole lot of guys. I'm just kind of scrolling through looking for guys that have like made greater than 50% made cut odds, but we don't have anybody outside of a few of those that you just mentioned are in the high 40s. But if you want to go by safety, once you get below 7K, there's not a whole lot down there. So that's probably good in terms of analysis of the lower end range, and everybody's itching for the snake draft. So if you're watching on the podcast feed, we can bid you farewell unless you want to listen to the glorious analysis that goes into me failing to cash a snake draft team. Or if you want to know who not to play, I guess you can do that. You can take that route. But otherwise, we will hope to see you back here next week. As always, thanks for listening. Pop onto the YouTube video and give us a thumbs up at some point. We would appreciate that. And for those of you who are continuing on, all right, we can decide to join that $5 12-player snake draft, which is at 5 of 12 as I am talking here on DraftKings. Now it's at 6 of 12. And now it's at 7 of 12. So by the time this comes across your airwaves, it's going to be filling up. So get in there now. Jay Steele, if you're around.
He's in the chat.
Get in there this week. so that you can participate and beat me like everybody else does. All right, we're at 9 of 12 now. We'll work to get that filled up, and then I will hopefully share my screen. The software has been a little glitchy with me the last couple times I've tried to take the screen share in the middle of shows, but we'll fingers crossed that it will work this week. So $5 12-person snake draft, 9 of 12 right now. We're gonna
the 1 week Jay still gets in, it's not gonna fill. No, we're just gonna have to cancel.
Yeah, we'll have to go back out. Let's see. I'm gonna put a tweet out there as well, just in case. Let's see where we're at. Usually every time I do that, it fills right after. Okay, that tweet is posted. And we're still at 9. So we need 3 more willing participants to fork over $5 for a chance to win some smackers on DraftKings this week. The snake draft crew is having a post-Masters hangover. Enough people have been asking. I figured this would be easy peasy this week, getting her filled up.
All right, stuck at 9.
Still stuck. Just stuck at 9. This hasn't happened so far. Most weeks we've gotten her filled up right away. Got to get that filled so it's not dead air. We get dead air.
What did you think of the live interviews while they were on the course? I thought it was kind of weird at the Masters.
It did seem weird for the Masters. I get kind of doing it maybe at some of the lower tier events. Obviously, I think I don't know. I think some of it depends on perspective as well. Like I've really enjoyed when they've done it. They've done it a lot in like Sunday night baseball games where they'll mic up somebody at third base or outfield or something. And I think with baseball, it's interesting to kind of hear those kind of real time thoughts as pitches get delivered and stuff like that from guys that are in the field. Especially now with the pitch clock in baseball has really improved the pace in MLB this year. So I'm a fan of those changes so far. But yeah, it seemed a little weird to do it at the Masters. But I don't know. I think the interactive kind of nature is kind of the future that sports are trending towards.
Yeah. All right, I'll send out a tweet. We're at 10.
We're at 10. We got one person to join during my monologue there. Two more willing participants. And again, it's plus EV when you're playing with me in the
not if you auto draft.
No, I'm determined at this point to not be a punching bag in these things. So we're gonna get there eventually. So who you got winning the NBA Finals this year? Who's seems pretty wide open.
Well, I got money on the Suns. I parlayed them with Scottie Scheffler to win the Players like a month ago. So that's what I'm rooting for. I don't know.
I had the Suns at like 40-1 last year, preseason, and then they just.
I think the Bucks are going to win it though.
Piddled down their leg in the postseason. We have to take a look at some live. All right, we're at 11 out of 12. One more person. Click that button. $5 snake draft on DraftKings. I am struggling to fill the dead air. We've picked an NBA champion.
I have to go back to the 6-man next week. Okay, we're starting. Finally.
All right, good. And as soon as this loads.
Jay Still, are you in there? Maybe he's Jay Sizzle.
Well, I'm going to have to refresh. My screen is stuck, and I got logged out of DraftKings.
Oh, yes. Dan is in the field.
Dan, after a month, 3 weeks or so of hiatus, is back.
And just copy his lineup and cash.
Yeah, Jay Sizzle. That's definitely Jay Steele. I remember him having a Tampa Bay Lightning logo. All right, I will share my screen, and we will get this rolling. Hopefully this does not get stuck. Sometimes these get stuck on me when this happens. You show anybody drafting yet? This is when it tends
We still have 55 seconds till it starts.
Yeah, I think it's because mine froze up, so the countdown clock isn't rolling. But fourth pick. All right, we're picking 4-5 this week. That's
not bad. Not bad.
That's not bad. I'll take that. Yeah, not really a bad spot, I don't think, to be in this week.
Did you stack your Cardinals tonight in Coors?
I didn't get any NBA in tonight. I was just running behind, and I'm mad at them because we drove up to Milwaukee on Friday night. So I've been working a lot of hours. If you don't know me, I'm a CPA, so I do taxes for a living. Those of you that are listening. And so I've been working, a ton of hours, February, March, and first part of April here. But Friday night, holiday weekend, I said, let's go up to Milwaukee and watch the Cardinals. It's about 2.5 hours we're closer to Milwaukee than we are to St. Louis. So we can do like a day trip to Milwaukee and make it work. And our kids are old enough now that, it's doable. So leave work at like 3:45, go up to Milwaukee, watch the Cardinals get shut out, and then drive 2.5 hours home. We got home at like 1 a.m. And then, I was just kind of dragging all weekend after you get, you get a night where you don't get much sleep and it takes you a few days to catch up. So drove all the way up and watched them get shut out.
On top of the Zalatoris WD.
On top of the Zalatoris WD. On top of being tired from doing taxes all winter. But that's okay. The kids enjoyed the trip, and it's a nice park up in Milwaukee. The good news is they were getting blown out, and so we left in the 8th, and I was able to beat the traffic. That was the only good news. But
all right, Tiger Woods 69 in the chat got the first pick correct. It was Scheffler overall. Dan with Cantlay, love to see that.
All right, I'm gonna go with Morikawa here, I think. Well, you knew I wasn't gonna take Spieth, so that shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, now what do I do?
Yeah, you're probably not taking Hovland, so it's probably like Finau or Xander, right? I almost went with Strauffele myself.
Oh, Xander has not played well here. Okay, I guess this will be my only exposure to Spieth.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You can thank me later when he wins, and then that's the reason I don't cash again.
He'll end up being my bench guy.
That was Zalatoris for me last week. That didn't help, having him automatically be the bench guy right from the jump, especially when he was your first pick.
Yeah.
So who's the player that falls down the list? I think that's a tough call this week.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any. Maybe Tigala? I don't know. He was great last week, so somebody will want him.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
Interested to see Homa's ownership. He's kind of disappointed the last couple of weeks. Do you think he's going to get it done in a major ever? Like even like a...
I think so. Some of it has to be variance, but it's definitely somewhat alarming at this point. Kind of surprised to see Finau last till number 11 there.
Yeah, I almost took him 5th.
Pretty good value for Jay Steele there. Johnny Two Bets. It's a new name. I don't think Johnny Two Bets has been with us before.
All right, Gerg, if you don't take Jaeger, you're out of the draft next week.
Is Gerg our resident Jaeger taker?
Oh yeah, mentioned him earlier too in the chat. For golf projection, is that a picture of Dak Prescott?
Let's see. I'm gonna try to blow it up here. Nope, that didn't work.
Oh, it didn't help.
Oh, no, now I can't. I can't de-size it. I've really screwed the pooch here. Refresh. Nope. See, this is what happens to me quite often when I share my screen in StreamYard as we're broadcasting. All of my tabs freeze. I am quite literally frozen at the moment, and probably not going to be able to make my pick here. We're gonna.
Hey, you better hurry.
Is it my turn?
No, you're third up. I took Tommy. Okay. Guess I'll go Matt Kuchar.
All right, I was able to load it in a new tab, which I can share after I pick here. This is a tough range. We'll go back to the well with Connors, hopefully. Okay, I am going to try to share my new tab. Got all carried away trying to see if that was Dak Prescott there. Lesson learned. We won't do that again.
Dan went with Henley. That's not good for me.
I don't understand why this happens. My tabs just randomly freeze. Now it's back. Make sure my...
At least you don't have the muting every 15 minutes anymore.
Oh, I changed my microphone. We went back to the old Yeti mic. The fancy mic did not work well with the new software. But it seems like when I'm sharing my screen, if I try to maneuver too much stuff around, all my tabs just freeze for like 2 or 3 minutes. It's really strange. Not the end of the world, because I don't seem to get disconnected and the screen still shares. It just freezes on my side. Can't switch tabs. All right. So with all that happening, I kind of lost track of who went where, but we're rolling along. Woodland, Chris Kirk, Keegan Bradley appears to be the winner of the who will fall below their pre-ranking the most contest.
That's interesting.
There goes Justin Rose. Boy, Keith Mitchell was so bad last week. Minwoo Lee was so bad last week. I think this is the spot where I just take Keegan at 28.
Yeah, I like that. That's what I was going to take. I'm going Poston. I got the all scrambler lineup. Speed, Kuchar, and Poston.
Reasonable strategy here for sure.
I haven't checked the weather yet. Have you?
I have not, but I will right now. It's probably dangerous. It's probably going to make my tabs freeze again.
I can do it.
I got it. It's working still for now. So. $10-day. Obviously, no guarantees with the weather forecast. Because we're taping this on Monday, but Thursday, mostly cloudy, 12-mile-an-hour winds. Looks like Friday is the most problematic with a chance of rain. But you're looking at 10-mile-an-hour winds every day, temps in the 70s, so nothing substantial.
Man, if it rains on Friday, it's going to be birdie fest on the weekend. No wind, pretty much.
Nope, pretty calm and a stronger field. I think you see good scoring this week. Which could be interesting if you're on some of those prop places that offer, birdies are better, round score, over under round score. I think those are interesting this week. Should the scoring improve from normal? There goes Jaeger. No Jaeger for Gerg. Johnny, 2 bets. That seems a little early for Jaeger.
Yeah, already, huh?
Maybe maybe Jaeger is part of the snake draft. Who knows? And Kitayama. All right, some unexpected picks there. There goes Ben Martin as well.
And Kitayama is currently in line to make the Ryder Cup team. How wild would that be?
That'll be a bet on Europe if that happens, probably. I suppose that's a little discredit to him. He's been playing well.
Although Europe, they have Victor Perez and Yannick Paul currently projected to make their team.
Okay. Well, then...
do you remember the Paul
TBD.
brothers from...
Oh, yeah.
From the Outlaw Tour?
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy, I think, was the other one.
I might still have a sheet down here somewhere because the time when the Outlaw Tour was going was when, my day job became work from home, which also, meant I was working here in the same spot where I'm doing the shows. Might have a sheet hanging around with some Outlaw guys written on it. All right, I know he's bad last week. Good pick on Davis. I was going to take him too, but I'll go with Minwoo here. I might have a sheet. It's got some outlaw guys written on it from a day of analysis. I got to see if it's here. Got some notes.
Man, if you have that paper, you need to go through your stuff, get rid of some stuff, or hang it on your wall.
Cannon, Gazzolo, Picanso. Those are outlaw names, my friends. That's pretty cool. Oh man, then Paul's written on here. Paul, Wheeldon, Marshall.
Oh, Wheeldon, I remember that name. Yeah.
Roberts. It's probably gonna be my pick again. I'm sitting here reminiscing about the Outlaw Tour.
What a weird time.
It was a weird time. Written on the side of a sheet with a bunch of tax notes. That was working half the time.
Yeah, I guess it was April-ish. Maybe.
Yeah, it was tax time, and the tax deadline got extended that year, so it was like May and stuff. We were still working on taxes and putting together outlaw lineups at the same time. It was a simpler time back then. It seems so. The world has changed so much since Outlaw Tour golf was going around.
Yeah, I was like going to their social media pages trying to see if they've been practicing. It was something.
Probably had more reliable injury info than we get on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
All right, heading into the 50s here. Still some decent names on the board, compared to what we've seen in some of these events here. 50th pick, so there goes Brian Harmon.
Man, I hope he turns it around. He's been so bad.
It's been very streaky for the better part of a couple of years now. He'll just go really good for a while and disappear for a while. All right, Dan Kramer, don't take Ryan Fox out from under me. I got to take Ryan Fox at the 52nd pick. All right.
Ooh, Davis Riley. I like that. I wonder if he's played here before.
I did have that up on one of my previous sets of tabs. He was miscut last year, is it?
Yeah, 127th. Not great. But he's on Bermuda. That's really all that matters. Oh, my pick? Okay. Oh, Seabez?
Yeah, he was one of the only other guys that graded out fairly well in our projections. Did you take Hughes on purpose, or did you get auto pick?
No, I took Hughes. All scrambler lineup except for Davis. Davis is currently like 150 to 1 right now. If anybody wants a super long shot,
it's not bad odds. All right, there goes Seabez right after. So we're heading towards the end of round 5 here. We'll have a couple picks left each.
Does anybody else see Dak Prescott in that picture? Or is it just me?
Maybe it's weird because there's a person with a Cowboys logo picking right after. I don't know. I tried to blow it up and it didn't work. So I am not going to do that again.
Looks like Dak, and then they just photoshopped it and made his head big. I don't know.
Maybe you can answer. Is that I don't know if
that's
man.
Danny Willett really hurt me last week. I had a big top 40 parlay, big made cut parlay, and he was in both of them.
Danny Willett ruining Noto's dreams at the Masters. So this is where the field kind of dips off a bit here. It'll be interesting to see where guys go. I don't really have a whole lot of other guys that I really like, so we'll see kind of who's going to be around when it gets back to Noto and myself. There goes Brendan Todd. So Noto, you can scratch him off your list there.
T49.
T49.
Hopefully Svensson remembers his caddy's name this week. Probably giving him bad numbers.
That's weird. Looking at the current form of some of these guys.
Wasn't that long ago, Patrick Rogers almost won the Valero.
There's another guy that's been up and down. Missed cut in 2 trips here. Not a lot of course history to speak of for the rest of this crew. Much all the way down the line. Lucas Glover, he's been disappointing lately. Ryan Palmer was T8 last time he played here 2 years ago.
He's been real frustrating. He's like the worst version of Gary Woodland, which isn't where you want to be.
No, it is not.
Oh, Daniel Cormier. Okay. UFC guy.
Oh, that's who the pick is?
Yeah.
There you go.
Mystery solved.
Not Dak. There goes Patrick Rogers. Speak of him, and it shall be done. Svensson, speak of him, it shall be done.
All right, Willett. One more chance.
Giving you a chance for redemption. I'll go with Spawn here. Spawn looked pretty good at the match play a few weeks ago. Came out of his group.
Yeah. The cheapest guy in the field.
Don't mind taking him in the later rounds here as we head towards the final 12 picks. Boy, Doug Gim still struggling along.
Poor guy.
Palmer has been bad. There's just a lot of bad down here. Stallings, nothing.
I got my eye on one guy. I'm not going to tell you who it is.
Cam Champ.
Dude, his run at the Masters is officially over.
It's
Oh, Johnny Two Bets is in the chat.
got the whole crew.
It's first snake draft on DK.
Welcome aboard.
At his daughter's cheer practice. I love it.
Got to make that cheer practice go a little faster. Well done. Pendrith. All right. I'm going to take Palmer because why not? I got to find him, though. He's pretty far down.
All right, Alonso Griffin. Back-to-back top 20s.
It's about as good as you're going to find down here.
Granted, one of them was on the Corn Ferry Tour. He played the Corn Ferry Tour instead of Corrales. I don't know why, but
might have been a stronger field there. So we've got 6 or so picks left to go. Adam Schenk. Oh, I can't get Dak Prescott out of my head now when this guy's picking. Well, anyway, our teams are set. Morikawa, Connors, Bradley, Minwoo Lee, Fox, Spawn, Palmer. For me, if you want to know who to fade this week, because I don't cash in these things. Spieth, Kuchar, Poston, Davis, Hughes, Willett, Griffin for Noto. And, we'll see how the week goes. Rolling through the final 5 picks here, but we'll just let those pick out. Not like there's any big names left to be picked, and we are right at an hour here. So we'll go ahead and call it a show. Noto, anything else before we get out of here?
No, thanks for helping us fill the draft. We'd still be here waiting on a couple more. And, hey, Jason Day, probably the same odds to win this week as he has the last 5 events he's played.
Ouch. All right. Well, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks, as always, for joining. Thanks to Steve for producing behind the scenes for us. And for Noto, I'm Justin. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll catch you later. Take care.